Yes, he was dating Anne at that time. I remember that very well.
Okay, well, we have another question here, which is, this is from, let's see, is it Tori McGuire? Oh, okay. Who else has been cast for a movie influence your interest in doing one film or another?
Has somebody who's been cast in a film influenced my decision? Is that the question?
Yeah, somebody who's already been cast. Does that sort of influence? Okay, how so?
Well, it does make a difference. You know, it's you know, there are several criteria that you know come into play when you're making a decision about doing a film, and maybe first for me, since I have a 14-year-old daughter now, is where and when does it shoot, and how long will I have to be away from home? Because it's as great and wonderful as it is, I've said goodbye to my daughter on Sunday. I left on Sunday, and now I won't see her till December 18th. And you know, the 6 or 7 weeks I won't get to see her, and that's difficult. And so that's usually my first criteria. But very much together, you know, and then it really is about the role itself, and do I feel like it's something that I could bring something to, but is a little bit different than what I've done in the past and is interesting. But it helps a lot knowing who you're going to be acting with. And most of the time, you know, I'm often cast once other, you know, actors have been put in place, or, you know, pretty much simultaneously. And it makes a big difference. You know, I've been able to work with some incredible people.
Well, let's follow up on that, because you've worked with some incredible directors. I mean, Oliver Stone twice, once Francis Ford Coppola twice,
right.
John Woo. I mean, you know, the action director. You've worked with some real people, heavy hitters. And my question to you is there a difference, or do you have a preference even for working with directors from established Hollywood system, or do you prefer the independents?
Well, you know, it doesn't matter. It's very interesting. For instance, Paul Greengrass, who directs the Bourne films. I've worked with him twice on the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum. Now, that's a big, huge Hollywood picture. But Paul's background really is in independent film. And he started there. He's done, you know, in fact, I think that's where his true heart lies, is in independent film. He directed United 93. He directed a wonderful film called Bloody Sunday. And he also comes from, you know, documentary work when he was very young and in college, etc. So, you know, there's a director from the independent world working on a big studio picture. It really doesn't matter. It's very much about the personality of the director himself. And I feel that the most important job of a director is to make the actor feel safe and feel protected, and feel that they can do their job and go to all the emotional places that are asked of them. And that really doesn't matter whether it's an independent film or a big studio film. I mean, it comes from the way the director interacts and communicates with each actor. And that really is the distinction for me.
It's been said sometimes that, well, there's one theory of thought, let's put it that way, that actors, if you take a look at the body of their work, tend to gravitate towards roles that either reflect who they really are or reflect who they want to be. And I bring this up only because I read one piece that was quite convincing, that you tend to become, your characters tend to become the moral conscience of the universes that are created in these little worlds of the film. And I'm particularly struck, if you could talk about that element. I'm sure it's probably not new to you that you've been called that. Is this something you seek out, or is this just something that a straight-A student from Rochelle would gravitate toward?
Well, you know, part of it is, you know, we are who we are, and
now that's a great quote. I like that.
There is something that is inherently unique about all of us, and I think that there is something about me that projects that kind of thing. So within that, I think there were kind of a string of films. Once I did Nixon, I played Pat Nixon, and then I did, I think I did either The Ice Storm next, and then I did The Crucible. And those three in a row, those characters were, and Nixon was kind of the film that sort of put me on the map more in the film world. And I think those three characters sort of had a similar sort of, they were somewhat described as the moral compass of each story. And so they happened all very quickly. They happened within a period of like a year and a half. I shot all three of those. And so it just kind of happened that way. And I think that became sort of a strong, somewhat imprint of what Joan Allen can do. Given that, over the years, and I think in the past 5 or 6 years, I've really tried to shake that a little bit. One thing I loved about doing The Upside of Anger was a woman who was behaving very badly. And I think that there are certain, I would definitely say that there are certain roles that I feel like I can't play. And I would say to any director, no, you shouldn't cast me as that because that's too far away from my essence, so to speak. But given that essence, I think that there are certain, you don't have to play the exact same thing time and again, that there are certain, you can stretch yourself in different directions, and I think I've really kind of gotten the opportunity more to do that in the past 5 or 6 years.
Well, yeah, we don't have to look any further than Death Race to figure that out. That's a slight flip side to that. But I was curious, though, the idea of the moral conscience. How many of you actually here, raise your hands, any of you seen Searching for Bobby Fischer? Anybody? All right, I want to tell you right now that the world thinks that Schindler's List was the greatest film of 1993, and I'm telling you it's not. It is Searching for Bobby Fischer, directed by the man who wrote Schindler's List, okay?
That's Zalian. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Steve Zalian. Now, I don't know what kind of a guy he is personally, but that's an amazing movie, and everyone thinks it's the story based on the true story of a New York Times sports writer whose son turns out to be a chess genius. That's what they think it is. It's a father-son story. No, it's not. This is Joan Allen's movie, and I'm saying this to you, Joan. This is your film because your character is, again, the moral conscience, but it's about a woman who keeps her family together and keeps their priorities straight in life. And yours, the character, has the least number of lines of the main cast, but I say it's the movie's really about that mother, and I thought you did a splendid job with almost 0 lines. What was it like working with Zalian and handling that part?
Well, it was a very interesting experience. It was the first time that Steve had directed, and he was sort of finding his legs, doing it. He's a brilliant writer, and he had great support from the producer Scott Rudin, who produces everything, in Hollywood these days, and very, very high quality projects, was the producer, and was extremely supportive. And it was quite a long shoot. We shot for 3 or 4 months in Toronto, and then we actually were able to shoot some, for 3 weeks in New York City, actually on the streets, because it's very expensive to shoot in New York, and if you can avoid it, people tend to try to do that. But I thought that the movie was I thought the movie was about, wasn't only about, chess genius. You can relate it to any area in which you have who excels in an area, and how much do you let that do you pressure them or force them or focus them, and how much do you let them be a kid? And how do you strike that balance? And I thought that the film really touched on that a lot. And that is what makes it, I think, I haven't seen it for many years, actually. Maybe want to watch it again, because I think it really succeeds on that level.
Please do watch it. It's an amazing work. It holds up even better for me as a father than it did earlier. So there you go. We
Great.
had a couple more questions here. This one comes from Letitia Moffett, who asks you, what is your ultimate dream role and why?